Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition, our Let's Play series against Lieutenant Rainbow Slash. And in today's episode, we are going to be looking at the turn replays for the turn of April 1st, 1942, and we will be issuing our orders for April 2nd, 1942. So we're into the spring. I don't know why there's no audio for the actual replay. I noticed, we've got some audio anyway, but I did notice that, we are now past the Japanese sort of amphibious bonus, so their attacks will be much less rapid, presumably, in the near future, and we'll see how that plays out. Meanwhile, you can see this turn is starting off with a Dutch submarine, the KX-2, or I guess K-12, firing torpedoes at Japanese destroyers by the looks of it, and now paying the price for that, getting hit pretty hard with some depth charges. We'll see how that plays out for it. Let's go ahead and fast forward here. If we take a look, you can see we took 3 hits. Doesn't look like critical damage to that sub, but I wish you'd find better targets to shoot your torpedoes at than enemy destroyers, because you're probably not going to hit anything with that. Okay, so fast transport in some islands here in the Dutch East Indies, unoccupied islands. So Japan can still do that, like even with the amphibious bonus gone. It takes a lot longer for them to unload troops and things like that, but if you're just unloading over a dot base or an unoccupied base, definitely something that they can still manage. I think what's much less likely is major amphibious landings on hostile beaches. That becomes much more challenging for Japan. They have a few really good cargo ships that can still manage it, but not very many. So that will make their sort of offensive punch be a little bit slower. So several fast transport landings occurring on several different unoccupied islands across the Pacific to start this turn off. And now we're rolling. We're into the AM phase. We can see air recon is underway, and we'll see how the air operation phases turn out here. Okay, so the Trusty is firing. Ooh, nice. 1 torpedo hit on a cargo ship here off the Dutch East Indies. A 2nd torpedo on a cargo ship off the Dutch East Indies here. That guy's probably going down. I think that's a British submarine, by the way. Those said they were Mark 13 torpedoes, I think. So the Trusty's got to be British. I don't think that's an American sub. So at least we've got someone with some working torpedoes. Hell yeah to the British. Meanwhile, 2 torpedoes into the Ryugi Maru. And I can hear the little bubbling noise immediately after that battle. So that submarine did sink the enemy cargo ship. So that's the first enemy cargo ship we've sunk in a while. We've got another submarine operating off the coast of the Dutch East Indies here, an American sub, the Tuna. She's getting depth charged by Japanese escorts. I didn't see her get any torpedoes off. She did take 1 hit there, so taking a little bit of damage. Oh. Hit but no explosion! No! We put a torpedo into the side of a Japanese tanker outside truck, but it didn't explode. The Plunger, an American submarine, fired Mark 14 torpedoes at a Japanese tanker. Japan does not have very many tankers. They're basically worth more than light cruisers to the Japanese Navy. They definitely don't have enough, and every tanker lost is absolutely vital to the Japanese. It looks like this was a task force that included 2 tankers, and I'm guessing it was heading into truck, so it was probably laden with cargo. We might have done a little bit of systems damage. Sometimes duds do that for you, but obviously we didn't sink the enemy tanker, and that sucks. So fuck those Mark 14s, huh? But at least maybe it'll make him think. Meanwhile, we've got the Dutch sub here off the Dutch East Indies here. More enemy escorts going after it. And moving into the, is it the AM phase now for our operations? Looks like they spotted our cargo task force, which is heading into Darwin to try and run some supply there. We're a little bit low on supply. We'll see if they've got any attack aircraft out against them. They're all AKLs traveling along the northern coast of Australia, so they're a little bit vulnerable. The Japanese might get a free, field day of sinking a couple of very low-value cargo ships, but I think it's worth it to try and run some 15,000 supply or so into Darwin, because Darwin draws a little bit of supply over the continent in Australia, but very little. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Meanwhile, Japanese bombers continuing to hit isolated troops in Balikpapan. You can see here they're largely just training up, right? You can see these guys are hitting these troops here north of Port Moresby. Again, all these troops in those two bases anyway, completely cut off from supply, so just easy pickings for the bombers. Meanwhile, some Kates hitting the troops at Ambon, and then also some troops here in central Sumatra. More Lilies going in here to Port Moresby. More casualties inflicted, a couple of squads destroyed there. And some Sallies going in here on the northern tip of Sumatra to the troops that were driven out of Sabang. So a lot of bombing going on here, a lot of Japanese air crews gaining some experience, and we'll see how things play out. We'll take a look at the retreat in China Daegon and see where we're at. I think we're in pretty good position to get out of there in time. Whether we are in position to be able to build forts up, for our units in the mountains there, that I don't know, but I do think we're in pretty good position to at least get the troops out of Sian without losing too much in the way of casualties, at least in the initial retreat. Meanwhile, you can see here float planes sort of all over the place for everybody, detecting ships. Well, there's a lot of shipping in the Pacific Ocean. I guess that's the right way to say it. Mexicans, yeah, the Japanese did deploy, or not the Japanese, the American submarines were traditionally named after fish. Okay, so we've got 18 Oscars coming in here, sweeping over Batavia. Interesting that they didn't launch any bombing attacks over Batavia. Meanwhile, we're intercepting with 6 Hurricane 2B tropes of the Dutch Air Force, as well as I think I saw 4 P-40E Warhawks. So we're outnumbered and, frankly, probably outclassed in terms of the experience of these crew members. So we'll go ahead and actually now up to 8 Warhawks. So it looks like we've got almost maybe 18 aircraft engaged there. We'll go ahead and fast forward here. It looks like we had 14 Warhawks and 8 Hurricanes, so 22 aircraft. So we actually outnumbered them in the end once everybody got up to scramble. We lost 2 P-40E Warhawks, but we're claiming 2 Oscars shot down as well. So if we really had a 1-to-1 K-death ratio for our fighters, I would consider that a pretty big success. You can see they were coming in at 30,000 feet. Our Hurricanes have better altitude capabilities. They were at 34, so they were able to bounce. But the Warhawks, I believe, were set to like 20,000, so they had a substantial altitude disadvantage. Okay, so we're fast-forwarding a little bit here through more of the air operation phase. And some units combining. The British sub is firing more torpedoes. The Truant fired some torpedoes at a Japanese destroyer. Unfortunately, none of those hit. The Japanese are trying to find the sub, but it looks like they abandoned their search. So 4 torpedoes fired at the enemy destroyer, no damage done, and the enemy did not counter with any damage of its own. So that's okay, I guess. Meanwhile, Japanese troops landing on the southwest tip of Mindanao, the last base, I think, in Mindanao, other than Kaigan, that hasn't fallen. I think I was pulling my troops out of that base, so it looks like they must have already gotten out of there to try and reinforce our position in central Mindanao, where the Japanese have been held up for a while. Meanwhile, the Japanese continue to bombard at Quilin. You can see they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 infantry divisions here, as well as a mortar battalion. So Quilin should be able to hold out with the force that they have in position here. I am sending a little bit of reinforcements. I think I'm sending 2 additional corps south, because I do want to pull our best corps here, where is it? The 66, 453 assault value. I do want to pull that north and potentially into Burma, or at least to another theater. I think it's a really good unit, and I don't want to tie it to Quilin, but I don't want to withdraw that until I've got some reinforcements to take its place. Maskiv, this is War in the Pacific. Did I not flag this properly? It should be. It's not showing. Oh, I'm sorry. 1 second. I don't know why. Twitch has like 5 different War in the Pacifics, but the only one that sticks is this one. So I just updated the stream to include the info. Okay, so you can see that bombardment at Quilin. They did a little bit of damage to us, but they lost more than they did in terms of damage. So that again, that bodes well. That indicates that we should be fine versus any enemy attack. Deliberate attack here on Ambon against our forces. We've still got the Sparrow Battalion of the Australian Army there. So we didn't lose the base, but we did lose the last fort level. It's down to fort level 0, so these guys will probably be overrun and destroyed next turn. Still, we bought another turn. We're into April with this enemy brigade that's being tied up. Japanese regiment here in central Sumatra is attacking one of our forces near Djambi, and it looks like they successfully got 1-to-1 odds, but actually lost more casualties than we did in that open field battle, and they even lost a squad destroyed. So that fight, in my opinion, definitely went our direction. Bloodied the 124th Infantry Regiment up a little bit. And then another Japanese bombardment attack at Kaigan. They're really taking their time there. They don't want to lose another assault there. We've already kind of shredded 2 or 3 regiments of the Japanese military on Mindanao at this base, so they haven't decided to attack yet. Meanwhile, Japanese deliberate attack at Kuching. You can see here 2 Naval Guard units attacking the Indian Battalion here, the Sarawak Force, the 106th Royal Navy Base Force, and then 2 Dutch units, a Dutch Infantry Battalion and Base Force. But these guys have been starving for a while, so they weren't able to put up much fight, and the Japanese drove them back. The Dutch units there and the Punjab Battalion surrender. Actually, it's looking like all of the units are surrendering here. So no one's being driven into the jungle. Everyone is surrendering. As a result, that means almost 2,000 prisoners of war, 55 squads destroyed, 134 non-combatants, 2 engineers, 3 guns lost, 5 units all destroyed here in the northwest tip of Borneo. Japanese deliberate attack at Tijapo here in central southern Java. No troops there to defend against. The 4th Infantry Division, by the way, is ashore here, so you can see that's a full Japanese infantry division committed to the southern portion of the map here on Java, as well as a SNLF unit to the south of Surabaya. So they're kind of landing all over the place there. I continue to bombard on Cebu despite lack of supply. I think I forgot to turn those orders off. Same for Pamskin. Didn't really hurt me at all. I guess this one did. I lost a few casualties. Japanese shock attack here in the Gilberts on an unoccupied base. Another shock attack in the Gilberts on an unoccupied base. A shock attack here south of the Gilberts in an unoccupied base. And then a shock attack here north of the Ellice Islands on an unoccupied base. So all of those unoccupied islands falling to the Japanese. Looks like the Japanese did a paratrooper attack here at Sintang. You can see the 1st Raiding Regiment is here. The only way they could have gotten there likely were paratroopers. So it looks like they dropped about 700 paratroopers into central Borneo to take that particular base. And they managed to do it. Same turn as well. I think they landed and attacked the same turn. Some additional bases falling on New Guinea, and that looks like that's it for the turn. Expanding some fortifications in a few places. And I think that's about it. So a pretty interesting turn from a submarine perspective. A lot of submarines were active. We sank 1 enemy cargo ship. We could have hurt really badly the Japanese Navy by, taking out another tanker, but unfortunately our torpedoes failed. And then that British submarine also, as well as a Dutch submarine, decided to, decided that they were going to fire torpedoes at destroyers and basically just wasted their torpedoes. A few submarines got depth charged near the Dutch East Indies. They may have taken a little bit of damage. We'll have to take a look at that. How are they going to remove the paratroopers like a G-Man? Maybe, I don't know if float planes are allowed to land in inland hexes or not. I'm not sure. I guess they could build it up to a level 1 airfield and then withdraw. Yeah, Elka. So I'm sure it's more about if you don't take every base on the island of Borneo and the Allies always feel like they have somewhere to retreat to, then you can get stuck with like much more stubborn resistance, I believe, if they think they have a path to retreat, even if it's in the middle of nowhere. No, they gone. I'm sure they'll be able to get those troops out. All right, so real quick, let's take a look at the intelligence screen. 3 air-to-air losses for the Allies. We're claiming 6 for the Japanese, 8 op losses for the Japanese, 4 for the Allies. So a good day on the air war. Nothing that's going to move the needle at all, but we're claiming we shot down 5 Ki-43 Oscars in that battle over Batavia, so that's pretty sweet. We are acknowledging the loss of 3 P-40E Warhawks, claiming 2 Zeros were lost to operational losses, 1 Mavis, 1 Nell, 1 Jake. We also lost a Seagull, a Catalina, a Bolingbroke 4, which is basically a Blenheim 4 in the Canadian Air Force, and a Hudson 1. Those are all ops losses. So claiming 7 Allied losses to 14 Japanese losses. If we go to top pilots here, I don't really see any change here, although I'm not tracking that too deeply. It looks like we did lose 1 pilot KIA, but none of our top aces were Dutch, so that shouldn't matter. I am curious, though, with that fight over Batavia, what do our best Dutch pilots look like? So our best Dutch pilot appears to be N. de Jong. He's flown 62 missions, 62 experience, and he's killed 3 Japanese aircraft, or shot 3 down. He's flying the Hurricane 2B Tropes. We also have R. Phillips, who has 2 kills, but he's been killed himself. He was flying a Brewster Buffalo in the Dutch Air Force. And we've got several other Dutch pilots, all with 2 kills, some of them flying Hurricanes, some of them flying Warhawks, some of them flying Buffaloes, which have been, I think that squadron's been withdrawn from the map. But no aces, although, again, we've got one guy who's kind of inching his way up there, now up to 3 kills. In terms of ship sunk last turn, we did claim the Japanese Ryuji Maru, worth 7 points, a Japanese AK taken out by a Mark 13 torpedo by the British Navy. You can see this particular ship is 3,400 tons, pretty good endurance at 10,000, max speed of 12, so this isn't a terribly valuable target, only 7 victory points. It's not a troop transport, although it does carry a small amount of troops. It can carry up to 285 soldiers and 3,500 cargo. So not a AKL, but not a big fat, merchantman either. Still, every single ship sunk counts. So that's all we had last turn in terms of KIA or ships being sunk. Let's see here. Reload the British torpedoes at Surabaya before the base falls. Yeah, perhaps. So you can see here's the Truant. Here's our submarine ace, if you will. Fired off almost all of his torpedoes. Fired off 2 of its 3 ammo chits. It's got 1 more. 6 torpedoes spread through its front torpedo tubes. God, that's a big torpedo spread. Six forward tubes. She appears to be a Triton class submarine of the British Navy. She suffered a little bit of systems damage, but otherwise is very, very effectual here. So we may want to replenish her from the stocks at Surabaya before that falls to the Japanese. We did also, was it the Trusty? Oh, we have 2 British submarines down here. Hell yeah! These guys have Mark 13 torpedoes also. They haven't hit anything yet. But we've also got the Trusty down here, an emergency war class submarine, so I don't know how good she is. But you can see the Trusty of the T-War emergency class is another British sub that's deployed down here near the Dutch East Indies. And then we've also got the Tuna and then this Dutch boat. I think the Tuna took a little bit of damage here. 412. I don't know if anybody else, I didn't see anybody else engaged. This Type 12, she took a bit of float damage, so we're probably going to need to pull her out. 18 float damage on this Dutch sub. Probably need to get her out of there. Rear Admiral Butts, thank you very much for the follow. Appreciate it. Like the name. All right. What's a U.S. sub like a G-Man? The Trusty? Trusty said it was British. Right here, British Task Force 120. And the Truant up here, another British sub. No, like a G-Man Truant, at least right here anyway. These are both listed as British. All right. Okay, so we can also... so I tried to sneak the mobile and held battalion in here to this base, thinking it might be unoccupied, but it does look like there's 6 Japanese units here, 95 fighters. I'm going to do a deliberate attack. I don't think there's any way we drive them back unless they're all just... It's possible if these guys are all engineer units that maybe they don't have an infantry here, and we could succeed and take this base back. And if we were to take the base from the Japanese, we could destroy 100 enemy fighters on the ground by taking the base. That seems very unlikely, but I will still try to do it and see if we can't surprise them a little bit. We can see Batavia is up to 89%, so 11 days away from being able to get that up to a level 4 fort. I think we're going to fall just shy of that. I think they're going to attack because the hex just south of Batavia is a clear hex. So unfortunately, we're likely not going to delay the Japanese 11 days in getting to Batavia, but we'll see. Meanwhile, you can see this is where they drop the paratroopers. I do have some troops that are trying to get to Sandpit. I don't know if that base is unoccupied. It looks to me like it's unoccupied. We're just a few days away, so if we can get there, maybe we can take that base on the southern tip of Borneo back from the Japanese. These guys, meanwhile, this 101st Filipino Army Battalion is attempting to move toward Kaigan. They are going to move to Dumaculas next turn, and not next turn, but that's their next destination. They're 12 miles away. They probably won't get here before these Japanese troops, which just landed, take the base. But if there's only 300 troops here, maybe we can counterattack and retake that from them and maybe steal a little bit of supply. That would be kind of nice. Meanwhile, Cebu, let's go ahead and stop those bombardment attacks. That's just going to burn supply that we can't afford to use. So we'll go ahead and do that. Our troops did reach Bataan here, so we're showing 3 enemy units. I'm assuming this is the 2 divisions we drove back and maybe 1 other unit of reinforcements. We have 1,400 assault value left, and we have reached here. So we have 10,000 supplies in the hex. Did we steal supplies from them or something? Where did we get 10,000 supplies? I'm not sure where that supply came from. The problem with this is if we do attack these guys, it's jungle terrain, JR, which is ×3... Yep, ×3 defensive terrain. Plus, if they've spent the time that we've been marching this way to build the base's fort up at all, we're in some serious trouble. So that's what my troops have internally as well. Oh, okay. Really? All right. Well, in any event, everybody's fully supplied. So let's at least move these guys into combat mode, right? So we'll set all these guys to combat mode for sure. We don't want to get caught out of combat mode. And we're totally prepared for Bataan, so we don't have any sort of preparation bonus for attacking Clark Field or anything like that. But I guess the thing to do now is to just try and attack him, right? So we could do a deliberate attack here and just see what happens. Part of me says do a shock attack because that's your best chance, that first attack with a shock attack against an enemy force that you've battered up a little bit. I feel like a shock attack is the best chance we have for winning, but a deliberate attack is the best chance we have to avoid being completely shattered by the Japanese. So I'm a little bit torn. You know, we could get a good die roll and things could go well for us, and we could take the base with a shock attack if the enemy is weak enough in a place where a deliberate attack might expend our energy. But for the moment, I'm going to set that to a deliberate attack. If we take a look here, been moving a lot of troops around in China. Guilin, you can see we've got our troops here. Looks like we're up to 2,200 assault value on this base. I think we have 1 unit that's coming in as reinforcements, or maybe they already arrived by the looks of it. I am also trying to pull one of these units here at Luqiu back. The 6th Chinese Corps has been really beat up, so I'm going to withdraw it to try and repair it a little bit. I'm also moving the 75th and 70th Corps south, so another 600 assault value to move into Guilin to try and shore that position up, because if he pushes through Guilin, this whole southern position is going to fall apart pretty quickly, and then he'll likely drive to Luqiu, then drive up the railway toward Tuyuan, and then Guiyang, and then threaten Chongqing, all in the span of probably a month or 2. And obviously we don't want that to happen, so we're gonna withdraw there. You can see he is pursuing our 1 corps out of Nanying to the west, so the 12th Corps is trying to pull back. They made 25 miles of progress last turn. There's a chance they may get back out into the mountains before the Japanese can arrive. We are also in the process of withdrawing our troops towards Sian, so you can see here we've got 4 corps here southeast of Sian that are moving in combat mode. So these guys are I think, probably 2 days away from getting just south of Sian. I have also started shifting a few of my headquarters units out because they're not super important since it's going to be a fighting action or fighting withdrawal. And I've also started to pull some of my better strength corps out, because what I'd like to do is position these guys in the mountains north and get them digging trenches before the Japanese arrive. So I'm going to move some of the heavier corps back, given these 4 corps are all going to arrive likely before these 3 corps are fully out or within a day or so the Japanese don't have time to take advantage of that, since they're not even in this hex or pursuing that way. You can see that the Japanese have arrived to the east of Cyan now, so this is actually bad news because they probably can attack the 76th Corps this turn, drive it back on its supports into this rough terrain, and that means that they could definitely get to Cyan pretty quickly, although I don't think there's any scenario where they get there more quickly than, than I'm able to pull out. I think we're going to move the 85th Corps west since it's our best corps in this delaying force. And we're going to move one or two of our weaker corps into this rough terrain here to, again, just act as a delaying force so that the Japanese can't overrun us and flank us too quickly. Where's the 8th Route Army? Why do you ask, Sean Mack? The 8th Group Army is here. I'm not sure where an individual unit is. I mean, I can take a look, but I'm not sure why I'm looking for the 8th Route Army or Route Army. Okay. So we could probably filter pretty easily. Whoops. Chinese. Group. I don't even see them. Aren't they? Are they a headquarters unit? Or are they infantry? Not really seeing them in here at all. So, not sure how to answer your question, but it doesn't look like I can find them. It starts with 729 Chinese rifle squads. Well, I have no idea, Sean Mack. I'll have to take a look at that off camera, if you will. Meanwhile, in Rangoon, I think most of our troops are off. So it looks like these guys are you can go ahead and undock here, boys. That'll free up 20,000 tons of cargo space at the base. It looks like this unit here is almost done unloading. It can't. All right, so it's got 9,000 tons. It's got a few additional troops. Looks like some motorized support here, 42 of it that is still unloading. But the bulk of the formation here is off. Meanwhile, we've got a few more troops coming in, some additional equipment. These are all, I believe, motorized support for the 7th Australian Infantry Division. Looks like we've got 12 there, and then we've got 19 here, but just some motorized support. The rest of the division is already ashore, and then we also have some shipping in this vicinity. Has there been any detection over these guys? There has not been. So we've got 3 British battleships located here. We could try and bombard Port Blair and obliterate what the Japanese have left. We are unloading supply at Port Blair, by the way, so this Port Blair supply situation has substantially improved in the last 2 days as we've unloaded almost 4,000 supply on this particular base. And then so we've got some shipping moving around in Rangoon. You can see here we've got over 600 assault value. Almost 500 of that is the 7th Australian Division located at Rangoon. And then we've got quite a bit of troops down at Pegu, another 500 assault value. You can see south of Pegu we've got 2 divisions, the 1st Burma and 18th British Division for an additional 900 assault value, as well as the 46th Indian. And I've done something that I think is interesting to you guys here. If we take a look, we can see here that Mandalay, as you remember, we had about 40 B-17s at Mandalay. Well, I restructured my Air Force pulled some troops in from the India Theater that were doing some transport, and now we have 114 aircraft at Mandalay. So we have 2 very strong air bases in Burma. We've got Rangoon, which is 106 aircraft. Almost all of them are fighters. If we take a look here, 99 of them are fighters, and they are all at 100% readiness. All of the aircraft are ready to fight. They are doing some cap. They're doing some operations. There's a little bit of fatigue, but it's all manageable. 32 of them are top-notch Hurricane 2B and A tropes, and then we've got some American fighters in this group as well. 7 of those aircraft are like transport aircraft. And then we have an additional 16 Hurricanes, as well as some photo recon located at Pegu. Did we lose 2 of them? No. Where's the rest of the group? There should have been 5 aircraft there. Maybe they only came on with 3. Oh, 2 of them went to the pool. That's weird. Some photo recon located at Pegu. But then if we look at Mandalay, we have 114 aircraft, which I've brought into Mandalay. 5 of them are Mitchell Photo Recon aircraft. Got to take care of them. I don't think I have any replacements for these guys, but they're a nice long-range photo reconnaissance aircraft, two-engine B-25s. We have 40 B-17s here, 36 of them ready at Mandalay, so a nice, strong punching force. And then we've got 26 Blenheim 4s, which are not great bombers, but there's 26 of them, and they're twin-engine bombers that carry a modest payload here. You can see they carry 4 250-pound bombs, so they're not terrible. So between that, we've got 26 medium bombers, and we've got 40 heavy bombers. That gives us a force of 66 bombers to try and strike the enemy with. And then I also brought in some fighters as well. So we've got the P-38s located here, as well as some Hurricanes, which we brought in. So a total of 42 fighters at this particular base as well. So you can see here a pretty strong force here. These Hurricanes are great in terms of their crews, their experience, and they're going to be very useful for us moving forward. We also have another 16, I think, Hurricanes out to the east at Lachaux. Actually, it's 12. And then we have some Blenheims and other aircraft that are supporting some air transport into China. We also have another squadron back here, some Blenheim 4s. I'm debating canceling this. So a lot of my Blenheims have been on supply missions to China, but I think I should cancel that because the Blenheims don't really draw much in the way of replacements, replacement aircrafts. Their replacement levels are very low, and we're starting to get some of these units attrited out in kind of substantial ways, and I don't know that I want to keep losing aircraft to transport supplies to China when we still have the Burma Road open. And so I'm just thinking it might be a better use of those aircraft in some sort of bombing missions. So anyway, with that being said, we also have seen the enemy has 17 units here at Mulmun. That feels like a slight increase over what we saw before, so they may be stacking up there. We'll have to try and get a little bit of reconnaissance over there, a little bit more anyway than we have already, to get a better view of this. They've got 14 auxiliary aircrafts at Chiang Mai. They have 65 fighters and 20 bombers at Bangkok. I would not be surprised if we start seeing some sweeping over Burma, but so far no indication of that. And I don't know why that notification is still triggering there, guys. I'm sorry about that. We're obviously not playing Armored Brigade. So, yeah, that's the situation right now in the Indo-Chinese theater, I guess. They're the Burma theater and the Chinese theater. I'm bringing a little bit more supply. I'm trying to get one more supply run in with another, 40,000, or actually I think it's a 70,000 supply between 3 different task forces. Trying to bring that into Rangoon before he fully shuts that down to just flood Burma with as much supply as I can stack up a bit. We've got a good amount of supply there now, 54,000 at Rangoon. We've got 16,000 at Pegu. The troops south of Pegu have over 2,000. I think Mandalay's got like 25,000. So we've got a good amount of supply in Burma, but you can always have more, especially since I think some of these bases might be dealing with some attrition of the supply as well. So, anyway, so we've kind of looked briefly at Java. Not a lot has changed there, despite the Japanese landings. We're going to make the one attack there. We're going to make the attack at Bataan this next turn to see if we can't, snatch victory from the jaws of defeat there, steal some supply from the Japanese. We've seen that the Japanese large task force trying to flank Sian is now just a few hexes to the east, as we're still trying to pull our troops back. I think actually it might not be a terrible idea to switch these guys to move mode. There is a chance the Japanese could attack us and catch us by surprise, but if they don't launch an attack here, we'll get 14 miles easily in the next turn, and then we should be well on our way to evacuating out of Sian well before the Japanese can arrive there and getting our troops to the north. If we take a look at our carriers, I guess I still have them moving north, although that's probably a mistake. I probably should pull them back. There's not really much we can do on Java with the Japanese having over 100 fighters based here, and I think they've got an additional 40 fighters based here. So the enemy fighter cover on Java alone would be enough to sweep aside my cap on my carriers and then open us up for easy enemy attacks. So I think I should pull my carriers back, perhaps to the South Pacific, rather than moving into Burma, but we'll see. Where is the American? Oh, by the way, our tankers made it out. So you guys may remember we had a destroyer sunk by Japanese Bettys that were located on New Caledonia, and then we kind of panicked and sort of had all of our aircraft flee as fast as they could south, and it looks like all these tankers made it out as they scattered. So unlike in the Atlantic during the U-boat offensive, scattering convoys works in some cases. Meanwhile, we've also got the Americal division here that is moving west toward Australia. They're getting pretty close, and we've also set up a ASW task force here to help screen them from enemy submarines. Although I'm not sure I'm totally comfortable with what I did where I pulled those three entire... So, like, the task force, I guess it still has a Corvette with it, but that's a pretty big task force to have nobody in the task force with it, although the ASW task force is more effective at intercepting enemy subs before they get into attack. As long as they don't retreat if there's some sort of, like, surface raid against them. Troop convoys approaching Cape Town. Yeah, let's go take a look at Cape Town here. So we actually have these guys, which are set to not unload, or are they set to unload? They haven't started unloading. Oh wait, no, this is fuel. So nobody with troops here yet. I think we've got one that's like a day or two out. Computer CS. I don't remember setting any cargo ships up with computer. Huh. I'll have to check with Newhouser. I know I have a couple of folks that are helping with me with some of the logistics stuff. Troops. Let's take a look here. So 9,000 troops, 13 days away from Cape Town. We've got 7,000 troops 3 days away, so a tank battalion, a fighter group, a combat engineer unit, and an infantry battalion, all on their way to Cape Town, just 3 days away from arriving there, and they will get there in the next obviously in the next 3 days. This revives your War in the East defense of the Soviet Union. Okay. We're definitely going to be doing some War in the East, too, when that comes out. I think it's supposed to come out on the 25th, so a little bit less than 2 weeks away. So that's the most, I guess, immediate reinforcements arriving in Cape Town, or 3 days from now. And then we've got, obviously, the new Americal division that's very close to Australia, maybe a week away or less. And I think that's kind of it. I don't have a lot else to point to. Weren't we going to bombard Savi? Did they not bombard? Or did I can't remember what I told these guys to do. I know I was going to pull them away from the Fiji line with my battleships here. They felt a little bit exposed. But I was debating bombarding Savi. No, Pat, I don't think so. We did have some additional, I think, resupply that was on its way to Perth. Did they arrive? Looks like the Hurricanes arrived. So we did have, or the Fulmars. So we did have an air group of Fulmars, 12 Fulmars, and I want to say the 16 Hurricanes as well just came in on a cargo task force here. So 28 aircraft arrived in Western Australia, I believe on board this cargo task force here, air transport. So they're unloading their supply at Perth right now. And we've got some additional troops coming into Perth from another RAF Group 222, some field artillery, Australian engineers, and some additional, looks like First Corps, Second, whatever this group is, engineer battalion. So we do have some additional reserves about to arrive at Perth, coming in from the northeast or northwest. And we've got some fuel coming in as well. Good call out, Jet. Yep, concentration of firepower is definitely important. So let's see here. I think that's about it for this particular turn. I'm not sure there's a lot else going on. We were loading up some troops here in the Middle East, so you can see we had those 3 British infantry brigades that all arrived at Aden, and we were going to start bringing those guys onto the map, so you can actually see the Task Force 236 is loading the 23rd British Infantry Brigade, and in theory is going to go to Rangoon, although I suspect that won't happen. I suspect Rangoon will be closed before they get there. So the 23rd is being loaded up, and actually I think the 14th British Brigade hasn't been loaded up yet, but I think the other brigade is already at sea here. These guys, the 16th Brigade, is in theory on its way to Colombo, which is already loaded up, 120 assault value with some very good troops. I did want to reinforce Colombo a little bit, but we'll see. If they arrive to Sri Lanka and the enemy hasn't really shut down Rangoon yet, I may try and sneak them in there as well and try and get them out of there. Meanwhile, we've got a bunch of fuel that's also about to come on a map, 53,000 fuel from the Middle East heading toward Karachi to help fuel the Indian economy. And we've got a bunch of tankers and cargo ships and whatnot about to pull back into Abadan so we can load a whole bunch more oil and send it out that way. Ah, gotcha, Kuro. So that's about it. Transport. This AP just arrived back at San Diego. I badly need to get some cargo ships to San Diego. I've got troops there that I can transport into the front, into the islands that we wanna reinforce. We've got the 7th Marine Regiment. We've got the 9th Marine Regiment. We've got both of those are unrestricted and 142 assault value. So 2 crack Marine regiments, very useful there. In theory, we could buy out the 138th Separate Infantry Regiment for 400 points. Another option is to go to Los Angeles, and actually, these guys must be. Did they already arrive? The 27th Infantry Division is definitely a division I have enough points here to purchase, so we could spend 1,500, almost 1,600 points here to get these guys. But I don't have any transports for any of them right now sitting in San Diego. All the transports have been forward deployed, moving other troops. So I really need to get more APs down to San Diego. Maybe bring the President Polk down to San Diego. I need more troop transports at San Diego to get those units out to the front and get them to places where I can use them. I haven't spent the political points to unlock the 27th Division yet because I don't have any way to get them advanced to the front lines. But that is definitely something that is sort of front and center of my priority list of getting things taken care of. We'll take a look at ship availability in terms of what's coming up. We're 1 day away from a couple more cargo ships and a destroyer, 2 days from a tanker, 3 days from another troop transport at Balboa. So that'll be nice if we can move these guys forward here. It's a pretty good size troop transport here, 10,000 tons. So it'd be nice to be able to get them into San Diego here. And not a lot of heavy ships or anything like that. The next thing is 2 weeks from now, the Devonshire heavy cruiser, and then the Atlanta anti-aircraft cruiser here arriving in about 2 weeks. If we go back to the ground units arriving soon, ground reinforcement schedule, you can see here we've got 2 more really good infantry regiments. One of them is arriving in the eastern U.S. One of them is arriving in San Francisco, the 24th and the 147th Separate Infantry Regiments. So nice. They're not heavy units, but they're good, I think, at trying to defend a base against, an enemy attack, a likely enemy attack. And you can see these guys are set to the South Pacific headquarters, so they'll be free for us to load up on transports. And then the 147th is also to the South Pacific, so 2 more regiments that we can forward deploy, which, the really important thing with these guys is what I can do is I can throw these regiments on islands where I've got Marine regiments that are currently sitting like Vavu or Pago, and then I can take those Marine regiments and consolidate them in one place and then form up some of those divisions which are currently not formed up. And so that will do a lot to strengthen my counterpunching power so that hopefully in the not-too-distant future, we can start launching some counteroffensives against the Japanese. So that's kind of the upcoming list of units. We've got a nice core of Chinese troops arriving, by the way, in about 6 days with a good amount of Chinese rifle squads. I think that might have been a destroyed unit that's coming back. In terms of group reinforcements here, if we take a look, we've got some C-33s arriving in Melbourne in 1 day. There's only 2 of them, though. We've got some B-25s arriving in Canberra in 2 days, only 2 of them as well. So it's going to be a while before they're effective. In 3 days, we've got some cargo ships arriving in the Middle East. We've got 3 groups of C-47s. One of the groups has 10 aircraft in it. Another has 10 and another has 9. So actually 29 cargo aircraft arriving would be pretty useful, especially if things go bad in Burma. Maybe we can evacuate some troops via an airlift. And that's kind of the situation right now. So, not sure I have anything else to share at the moment. It'll be interesting. I think next turn will be pretty interesting to see what happens at Clark Field. And then also if maybe we get lucky at Khalgidi with our counterattack there. It does look like there's some shipping located moving northwest in Singapore. So I'm curious what this is. It says 10 ships, light cruisers, patrol craft. No idea what that really is. It's unlikely there's that many light cruisers. Could be moving up to bombard Meaden, where we've got some troops and he's landed, but I don't think that's even needed. We just have coastal guns there. He could be trying to reinforce Port Blair. That could be feasibly something that he would do. I don't think it's carriers based on what intel we have here, but that is something we should keep an eye on, because if they're really moving northwest through the Strait of Malacca, he could be making a play for Port Blair, which would definitely shut down the Bay of Bengal for us, and may also pose questions of whether I really want to do any kind of bombardment with these battleships, because if I get him into Mulman and then he hits and takes Port Blair with like a carrier group or an amphib group behind us, we might be kind of screwed and caught by a bunch of air powers. So we'll have to see. I don't have a lot of eyes in the Andaman Sea. Ideally, I'd have some like Catalinas or something here, but we'll have to take a look at that. We do have a carrier at Colombo, but if he's moving any carriers of his own, it's going to be pretty useless. If it's an enemy surface task force, though, our carrier might be able to do some damage. We've got 12 torpedo bombers and 45 torpedoes on that carrier, so I think I'll need to do a little bit of off-camera work to kind of dig into that and see what I think is the right approach for figuring that out. Whew. All right. So, with that being said, I don't have a lot else to share this turn. Ambon held out for now. They'll probably surrender next turn. I can't believe I didn't change these guys to Ambon. They would have fought much more effectively if I changed their prep. Batavia, please? Oh, Batavia Plains. I guess, yeah, let's take a look at that. So our fighter group's engaged on Batavia. By the looks of it, we only have 14 ready aircraft out of 27. The Hurricanes fared the best in terms of ready aircraft. We didn't lose any of the Hurricanes, although this looks like maybe we lost one of them. But you can see here, this is the fighter group that was engaged last turn. Actually, a couple of our pilots gained quite a bit of experience here. You can see the green indicates their air experience went up and their air skills went up, so that's nice. If we look at the P40 units, they're shot up a bit more, as to be expected. So these guys, you can see we gained some experience here. We lost some of their aircraft. The head of this group is up to 71 experience, which is pretty good for Dutch pilots in this game. And then this group has 3 ready aircraft, 4 damaged, and you can see here gained some experience. It looks like the pilots that were flying were on the lower end of the experience in this particular group. Take a look at the planes. These guys are going to be out of action for almost a week before all their damaged aircraft are back. The Hurricanes, 2 to 5 days, and then the other P40 group will mostly be better tomorrow. So it looks like 3 of these guys are just routine maintenance. So it looks like we've got 4 aircraft that will be ready tomorrow, and then the remaining 2 in 2 days. I'm curious to see if we stand our aircraft down, if he tries to bomb Batavia. You know, he lost a fair bit of fighters there. He may just kind of continue trying to sweep. Not really sure. Does look like the mini Kiributai is sticking around in the Java Sea, so we at least know that the mini Kiributai isn't up north here in Singapore. You can see they're hanging off just off the east coast of Java with their 80 fighters and 43 bombers. And then anything else? Any other intel here? Some light cruisers and minesweepers, some patrol craft. Not a lot of other intel on those ships in that area. So that's the situation there. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this episode of War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition. We'll see how our attack at Clark Field goes next time, as well as our attempted bombardment at Mulman. So, yeah, next turn could be a pretty significant turn in terms of action, so stay tuned for that episode. Until next time, however, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching, as always, and until next time, I'm out.